Good day everyone, hope you're well and thanks for tuning in. Apologies for the audio here, recording off the phone at the moment. As you know, I'm switching rooms in the sim, and as such I'm taking things apart gradually now, and I thought I'd take the opportunity because one of the things I want to fix here is my handbrake or parking brake. And so I've pulled it out of the sim, and I'll just show you in the underside in a moment. So effectively you've just got the cables coming out the back there, but and as you can see, got a little bit of repair work to do. It's a bit broken through there, but I'll fix that soon. But fundamentally underneath, it's a fairly straightforward setup really. It's just a little limit switch that's on there, and you can see I've got the handle that pulls, and then it just goes in and retracts down and then just activates the limit switch. So you pull it up, turn it, and then release. Historically what I've had is this on a series of bands, these little rubber bands at the back here, and after a while they tend to fatigue. And so what I want to do is actually modify this to use a spring. And so I'll just put that down. And so I've managed to get myself a spring from a local hardware store, and that spring will actually work quite well in going through the center of the shaft like that, and then I'll be able to do that from the other side. So what I need to do though is make some modifications to this outer casing because when you if I've got this in the fully extended position, not in that position and in the tension position, but in the retracted position, which is probably about there. This is the point where one side of the bands is activated and the other side's just on this bit at the back here, and I'll show you that in a moment. But you can see the problem that I'm going to have is the length of this particular spring. It's going to be too long. So how do I resolve that? Well, I extend this casing. So I'll extend this casing. It's about 50 millimeters, and then that'll put that under tension slightly in that particular configuration there, and then obviously be more tension once I pull it up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll just show you what I've got here now. So, and again, this was pretty crude at the time, but it was, I guess, a bit of a prototype, but it has actually worked quite well. And I'll just I'll come back once I've got some of this off. So here you can see what I've got there. So I've just got the bands, there was just bands that were wrapped around. So that band obviously went up the inside of this here, and then interfaced with that little, wrapped around the back of that there, which was just a little keeper piece that goes in there. And then obviously it was under tension, so it would spring back and activate the limit switch. And on the back here I just had a crossbar, and then just to hold it in position I just put a little bit of tape across that. What I'm going to do in fixing it up though is I'm going to extend this now out, and I'm going to create a little channel through here that this sits in rather than just being like that. So I'll actually have this sitting inside of a bit of a channel there, so it'll rest nicely, and modify that all up. So I'm going to pull all this apart and then modify it all up. So what we might do is show all this apart, and then I'll jump to the Fusion 360 and we'll show how we're going to modify it in Fusion. Alright, I managed to get it all apart. Some bits I can save, some bits I can't. So the shaft and the handle is going to be okay, so I've kept that piece. That'll be good. The actual piece that sits inside there where the shaft goes through, obviously for the mechanism for engaging and disengaging it with the limit switch sitting on top. This split and cactus. Need to make another one of those. We'll show you that in a moment in Fusion. Limit switches is fine, so just pull the limit switch off. Again, I just did a couple of super glue tabs on that to connect it to that, and it worked fine. I'll do the same thing again. You can just twist that off. That was fine. All the soldering still intact quite well, so that's going to work fine. So I've kept the limit switch, which is good. Obviously got the two little tube pieces here, which I need. Obviously one to go through this through here to be able to grab the spring. Obviously that'll go through, as you can see, we'll go through there. and grab the spring, come out the other side, which is something like that. I'll get that to work eventually, but yeah, you get the idea. And obviously got the little keeper piece at the back there, which I'll put on as well, and then I'll relay that into a channel. This casing itself needs to be extended, and to be honest with you, complete cactus inside here, so I'm going to completely make a new one and 3D print and make a new one anyway. I've got to modify the box, take it out, that, you know, another 50 odd millimeters, so we'll do that anyway. So let's jump into Fusion and make the modification to the model. Okay, here we are in Fusion. As you can see, I've got the parking brake. I've actually got it mounted in the correct position now, so I'm just going to flip it over and let's just make some modifications to it. So we'll turn it over. That's what you saw from the inside there. And as you can see, I've got everything modeled in my simulator, so I've just pulled everything else out. So we're going to modify this box, and what we're going to do is we're going to extend that part out by 50 millimeters. So that's effectively what we're going to do. The rest of it I'm pretty happy with. We can leave it as it is. And so once we've done that, we should be able to, also probably just put a little channel in there as well. So we'll just do those bits first, and then I'll come back. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to make this a Fusion 360 tutorial, but I'm effectively going to, I'll keep this base here the same, and I'm just going to extend this out beyond 50 millimeters. You won't see any of that because it'll be underneath the panel at the back. It'll just come out over here like that. 50 millimeters there, and then just put a little groove into that, a little channel groove into that to hold that shaft piece in. There's a retainer piece there, and then we'll be able to put the spring on under tension through that there, and then reconnect it all back up again. So that's what we're going to do, yeah, I'll show you what it looks like in the Fusion finished model. Okay, here we are back into Fusion 360, and I've made the modifications to it. So what I've done is effectively extend that out there by about 50 millimeters, extend the end of this, as you can see from previously. Created a little bit of a recess hollow, if you like, or channel to put in the 5 millimeter bar across there, just to hold that in as a retainer. And now what that'll do is in that retracted position, the distance between this which is where the spring will connect to inside that shaft there, you know, via that little tube piece. Between that 5 millimeter tube and that 5 millimeter tube is just on 80 millimeters, which is the relaxed distance of the spring. And then obviously when you pull back, you'll have that on tension, and then your limit switch will be mounted up here. So now what I need to do is 3D print all the bits that I wasn't able to salvage, which is obviously the brand new housing. I need to do the this little piece here, and I think I also need to do this little hub piece at the back as well. So I'll get those bits 3D printed, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like, and we'll start to put it all together. Okay, here we go. All the parts are now 3D printed as we've got. Just to quickly run through those. Obviously I retained the handle. That didn't have to be done again. That was good. And pulled everything else apart. Obviously the main handle shaft there, obviously retained that. And I did a new one of these. Now that's a model. This is not my design. I managed to get this out of, I think it was Thingiverse. If anyone's interested, I can always pop it in the description below. But yeah, but it's fairly straightforward. Just as you can see, just a tubular thing with a little slot through the side there for the handle to go up, and then you turn it, and then obviously your limit switch sits on top, and then that sits into my casing here. 3D printed the new casing, and again obviously extended that, which you saw in Fusion. So that's all now been redone. Yeah, this is just a little small lid adapter. So the way that I mount mine, obviously upside down, this is only just for my own one. I've just got a couple of small little bolts that are on the underside of my frame here. So this just to raise this up a little bit so they don't foul, but you probably wouldn't need that, well, depending on how you're mounting it. But this whole box here literally is just for the housing of this and everything else. And then there's just a small little bushing piece at the back there which sits into the unit like that. So, and then obviously the spring, which we've got, a couple of small little screws there just to hold that piece in place. And then they've retained these here, one for the back for the spring, and then one obviously to go in the side there. So realistically what we need to do now is assemble the whole thing, and to do that realistically all I'm going to be doing is to explain it, I'll be fundamentally bolting that into there, or not bolting it, but using those screws to mount that through into there like that. And then, in fact, I think what I'll do is I'll cut it here and I'll just cut back to me sort of assembled without the assembly, if that makes sense. Just bear with us, I'll come back in a sec. And there it is, guys, all assembled. I've got the limit switch in there, and as you can see, we've got the spring action with the handle all now assembled. So we literally just pull out and it releases back in, turn and activate the limit switch. So a very simple mechanism, but it really works. I think the other thing that I was managed to do, I probably just a little bit of super glue behind this here, and that seems to have held that in quite nicely, so I don't think I need the tape after all. Limit switches in there, obviously just secure those down with some screws, and everything else was glued into place. So that'll get mounted up now inside my frame, and yeah, job done. Easy peasy. I won't go into the software side of it, it's pretty easy realistically. If you've got yourselves a motherboard or Arduino, there's only three wires for the limit switch. You've obviously got an earth, an active power, and one for the switch itself. Yeah, that just goes into the 3, and then you can go into your software to configure that. So if you want me to do that, I can do that in a separate video. But that's fundamentally it. It's a fairly basic parking brake, and but it certainly does the job, and it looks pretty good once it's mounted inside the sim. Hope that was of some use to you. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. As you know, help me with the channel, subscribe, tell your mates. It's a good stuff channel, as you know. Thumbs up, all that kind of stuff, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.